So this is what we can all call a Texas-sized bombshell. Texas, Oklahoma to the SEC. All right, we got Nick Battle on the line from Nino's Corner to help us get the Texas perspective on all of this. Nick, it's always good to see you. Typically, we can just break down some personnel, some recruiting, but this is one for the ages. This, in some respects, in an off season, to put it in perspective, as you well know, because you've been talking it up, NIL, 12-team college football playoff proposal, transfer portal, recruiting season gets pushed back. There's a lot of huge stories out there, but this is going to top them all. The biggest expansion news that we've seen in a long, long time, maybe ever. Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. What were your thoughts when you initially were hit with this news?
So first off, man, it's not final yet, right? So it's just a matter of, if the SEC wants them, which of course you got to think the SEC wants them. Having two blue blood programs, let's keep it honest, Texas and OU come to the SEC. It just means the world to the SEC. They're already in Texas recruiting like crazy, right? Now, when they get the two strongholds with Texas and Texas A&M as well, just in the state, and then having OU, which all of those guys recruit for the same territory. Like the SEC is going to ravage that state now. So, hey, this is big news. If this does happen, you're looking at a power conference for the ages with, 3 or 4 true blue bloods in one conference.
Yeah. So do Texas fans, there's always going to be an outlier somewhere out there, but you're in contact with Texas fans constantly. You're one yourself. Is everybody pretty much all in on this? Like, this can't be a bad move. This is the way to go.
Yeah. So honestly, man, if you'd have, said this about 5 or 6 years ago, Texas fans are like, no, we're not going to the SEC. We don't want to play by those SEC rules. And everybody knows what the SEC rules are. I'm not going to talk about that, but we know what what goes on. I had 2 nieces that went to Alabama, and it is what it is. It's just say, yeah, it's Alabama. All right. So Texas fans really didn't want to go to the SEC to play those quote unquote SEC rules. But now that we got the NIL, where it is fine, for players to get paid for their likeness, their name. I mean, it opens up the door for everybody. So now, schools like Texas or schools like OU or, schools that normally wouldn't play that game are now can legally play that game. So it just brings Texas and OU the opportunity to play in the best conference, which the SEC is. And, they can compete, they can recruit, and, basically just pay the best talent and get more money. I heard, Mark, a rumor that those 2 teams joining that conference will increase everybody's share revenue to $38 million plus per team at the end of each season. So you're talking about a money grab that is nothing seen before, man.
Yeah, it only makes sense for Oklahoma and for Texas, because if you do look at the math of the revenue, and certainly there are other factors involved, but hey, it's a business. Money trumps everything else. So that's where you start, is that right now the SEC and the Big Ten bring home per team about double what the other 3 conferences do. And I think the Big 12 and the ACC are pretty much neck and neck, and the Pac-12 is 5th. But, twice as much per team. You can only expect with Texas money. Texas money goes a long way.
Long way.
In Oklahoma. But it's still got to be frustrating to a certain extent to be in a league and say, with all the money we can do on our own, Northwestern's bringing in twice as much money from the league as we are, and we're Texas or we're Oklahoma. So that's a big draw. Do you think there's anything to the fact that, well, we've got a 12-team playoff that most likely is going to take hold, and because the schedule is going to be brutal going forward in the SEC for both of these teams coming in from the Big 12. But then again, the expectations or the standard for reaching the playoffs being lowered. So if you're a Texas or Oklahoma, you play a brutal schedule, 9-3 might get you into the playoff.
Yeah. But honestly though, man, Mark, I was thinking that actually works in the opposite for Texas. I was thinking Texas and OU, if they stay in the Big 12, they got a better chance to make the playoffs if all they do is just win. They'll be one of the top 12 teams in the country. they will go to the playoffs and they have an opportunity, to actually play for that championship. It's the same thing as which I said, about Texas A&M, just 10 years ago. Just think if Texas A&M would have stayed in the Big 12 and they had Johnny Football at the time, they would have ran the Big 12. They would have competed for a championship probably. They would have ran that schedule pretty easy, and they would have been talked about in a much more different light. So I think with them having playoffs actually expand, I think that actually hurts Texas, hurts OU for those first 3 to 4 years. After that, once they get acclimated to the schedule, to the talent level that's in the SEC, I think then that's when they should have like a better transition.
I think it hurts college football. I'm not going to explain my point here because we're focusing on Texas, and I'm all over the place giving my opinion, call-in shows, videos all over the place, so people can check out my take on all of this. We need to hear from Nick here. And again, I just think it hurts college football for a number of reasons. All right. Yeah. Texas, Oklahoma, it's pretty much they come in tandem, don't they?
Yeah. But Mark, you know what, man? I just want to tell you too about the hurting other teams. I think it hurts them too. When you start to look at teams like TCU and Baylor and Texas Tech, you got to look at where are these teams going to find homes. Kansas is going to have a home pretty much wherever they want to go, not for football, but for basketball. They are a blue blood basketball program, so they can go to the Big Ten, they can go to the ACC, they can go to the Pac-12. They'll have no problems finding a home because their basketball team brings in a bunch of money, right? But it's the teams, like you say, Texas Tech, the Baylors, the TCUs, the Iowa States, which conferences are going to take those teams. And I don't see a bunch of suitors that are going to take like Oklahoma, not Oklahoma, right? It just doesn't sound right? So, and then once the SEC comes in and, possibly gets a Texas and possibly gets an OU, it's just going to make it that much harder for a team like Oklahoma State to go to Texas and get a guy. It's going to make it that much harder for a kid, from Dallas to go to Iowa State and play. So, it's going to be interesting to see how these conferences play out. Does the Big 12 just vanish and go away now? Does the Big 12 look at, teams like a Memphis or a Houston and try to bring those teams in? It's going to be very interesting. So we've all kind of known that this was going to happen with the power conferences, with the super conferences, right? So, SEC is the first domino to fall, and if they do get Texas and they do get OU, that's the first domino. Now it's going to be what other teams are going to merge together to make a super conference, whether it be, folks from ACC merging with, folks from the Big Ten. Who knows? It's going to get really interesting really quick, man.
Yeah. So if I'm the Big 12 and I try to survive, meaning I'm in the administration of the Big 12, I'm trying to hold the league together. Yeah. Memphis, Houston, Boise State, BYU, UCF, they go in those directions, but they're not replacing Oklahoma and Texas. There's just not an Oklahoma or Texas to go out there and grab. So you basically are maintaining something that's in the American Conference type ranks. Is what you're going to do. So if you want to survive that way as a conference, which depending on where you stand in the Big 12, you want to do that. But I got to think that if Iowa State, TCU, Oklahoma State get good offers, and I would think that they're marketable, they could go to the Pac-12 or the Big 10, that the league's just going to crumble.
Yeah. That's my take too, man. That's my take too, because when you take the two top teams out of that conference, and not just two top record-wise, because Texas hasn't been a top 2 team in that conference in a while, but they are the cash cow for that conference. It is what it is. Texas is always one of the richest schools in the country when it comes to just straight sports. And that's what us losing, so it just think what happens when Texas starts to win again on a consistent basis. The money's just going to go up. So, teams like Texas, teams like OU, they are the draw for the Big 12. And if they do indeed leave, then it is definitely going to make that conference just go down. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and in terms of the Big Ten and the ACC, again, as we stated off the top, that the Big Ten off the field is the main competitor for the SEC. In terms of eyeballs on the TV sets, digital money, the Big Ten matches the SEC, not necessarily on the field, but it's probably the second best conference on the field right now. That's arguable, but it's probably the second best conference. But with this, nobody can match the SEC. It's not even going to be close. It's not close now. I think the SEC has a decided edge now, but now it becomes ridiculous. So do we really want that for college football where one league is just paramount? see, you brought up an interesting point a few minutes ago that I didn't necessarily go in this direction, and I don't know if it's feasible, but the ACC can't grab enough teams, or the Big Ten, or nobody else can grab enough teams to compete with the SEC, because again, there are no more Oklahoma and Texas free agents out there. They don't exist unless you steal them from somewhere, or the Big Ten and the ACC get together and say, you know what, let's put our best teams together and make a super conference. I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably the
you think that might happen?
But that's the only way that they're going to be able to stack up. Like when you start to look at, you're talking about the SEC. If this happens, you're looking at blue blood programs like Texas, OU, Alabama. Those are, no kidding, 3 blue blood programs with a bunch of history. And then you can even look at a team like LSU. I wouldn't count them as a blue blood, but they're right there. Georgia, same thing. So you got 5 teams. Florida. That's 6 teams, man, that are either blue blood or right there on the cusp of having blue blood status. So you're looking at just a crazy amount of talent, just in one conference. And with the SEC, if they do merge Texas, OU, actually coming to the conference, you're looking at the whole state of Texas is going to go to the SEC now. It is what it is. It was already trending that way, but now it's really going to be just evident that all talent from Texas is either going to go to Texas or Texas A&M or OU, because mama can come see the kids play every weekend at those schools. But then, even if they even go to Ole Miss or Bama, they still get the opportunity to see their kid play 3 or 4 times a year if you're in the Dallas area or the Houston area, because they got to come play. If a kid goes to Bama, they play Texas every 4th year. If this pod situation happens, the way that the SEC has kind of already laid it out, right? They got to play Oklahoma once every 3 or 4 years. They got to play Texas A&M. So mama's going to get to see their kid play no matter what school they go to in the conference. So if they do, absorb Texas, absorb OU, it's going to be a shift like none other. And the whole landscape when it comes to recruiting from Texas over, it's going to be all SEC. And I don't see anybody stealing the talent from that.
Because I got to think right now, Texas and Oklahoma. I'm sorry, Nick, to cut you off. We had a bit of a lag there. Because I got to think, I think it's pretty obvious that Texas and Oklahoma, about the only thing that hurts them on the recruiting trail is it getting thrown in their face. Okay, the SEC, Texas A&M, the SEC. Ohio State comes into Texas. They've got to brand themselves. But man, you swallow up Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC, and that's kind of their last barrier in regards to a recruiting pitch. Play along here a little bit. I don't know that this is crazy, but if you're talking, you've got me going on this Big Ten ACC thing. Is that like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, the Eastern block of the Big Ten says Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, the better teams in the
Miami. Come on.
That's kind of an odd conference. But then again, at this point, this is what I hate about it as well. The competitive balance, I don't like what it does to those other teams in the Big 12, as you very eloquently stated. But college football is about culture. It's about environment. There's a reason that we all think, when we think SEC football, we think there's something we think of that attaches us to SEC football. There's a certain flavor, character to it. The Big 12, the same thing. The Big 10, the same thing, because it's rooted in that region and how those people live, what music they listen to, what kind of food they eat, how they're brought up, just what they like, the flavor, the culture. But that's been complete. When you got Nebraska and Rutgers in New York City in the same conference, that's been obliterated anyway. So I guess we might as well just go the full route and say Miami and Michigan can be in the same conference. Whatever. We're just playing like the NFL. We're just playing the best teams against each other. So let's.
The only actually is
was that?
So I do like the fact that if Texas goes there, you get the rivalries of Texas Arkansas again, right? We miss Texas Arkansas, great rivalry. Texas A&M, great rivalry. Texas OU, of course, that's going to always stay there. But Texas gets their 3 rivalries that they've had, since the beginning of time. Arkansas, A&M, and OU on the schedule every year. Now, that is amazing. We got folks that I have a friend. He's an older guy. He's in his 70s, and he remembers going to Texas, Arkansas every year. That was his game. He loved the game. And now Texas will get to have that game again if they do indeed join the SEC. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, Mark. It's going to be something that we haven't seen in a long time. It's going to be something great.
So, folks, I made a bit of an operational error here myself. I took us live with no intention to do that. So, Nick, I apologize for that. Thanks for playing along and being okay. And, you know, neither one of us said anything that is going to get us in trouble. So if things worked out there, but I guess that's what happened when you're out running errands. And I just kind of rushed in and turned on the lights and got us rolling here. So I forgot to hit this into private mode. So, bam, we got 70 people on the line with us out of nowhere. So. Any last thoughts on this, Nick?
Oh man, last thoughts. All right, so this does open up the rivalries again, right? Everybody misses the Texas A&M battle. I missed that on Thanksgiving. That was the game when I was in school. You circle that, you circle OU, you wait in line to get those tickets because those are the everybody wanted. You know, I have friends that went to A&M, and now since this news came out yesterday, we are all like, you know, talking junk to each other again. So it's that friendly rivalry, but there's still like the love-hate thing going on, right? But I think this hurts A&M. I do. I think this hurts A&M just because, like you said, they had that one feather in their cap to say, we're SEC, and you guys aren't. So, bye, right? If this does happen, it put them back in the same status that they were prior, right? Which was Texas and OU and then A&M. And that's how it was in the Big 12. That's how it was in the Southwestern Conference, right? So you're having a time now where they're going to go back to that because I don't like to say this, but Texas is the state school of Texas. We are the state school of Texas. Texas is on our front. There's no other letters under Texas. It's Texas, the University of Texas, right? So it is what it is. It's like Michigan. It's Michigan. There's nothing behind Michigan. Alabama, there's nothing behind Alabama. Those are your state schools. Those are your blue blood programs. And now if that blue blood program comes into the SEC, Texas A&M is going to have problems now because they're one feather in the cap of we play the best talent. We're in the SEC. In Oklahoma, you're not. Texas, you're not. That's gone now. So when it comes to recruiting, it's got to be head up recruiting now. And, you know, let's be honest, when kids – I know when I was in school in Texas versus Texas A&M, everybody wanted to go to Texas because it is the state school. Austin is the best city to be in that state. Nothing against College Station and Bryan, but if you want to go to College Station and you want to go to Austin and you see the difference between those two cities, most kids are going to say, I'm going to go to Austin because I know I can at least get a job here after I leave, college, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out if it does, because I think the team that's the most is going to be Texas A&M, and the team that's going to gain the most are going to be the two who are joining.
Hey, Nick, you brought up Michigan and you brought up Alabama. Yes, Auburn during its history at times has surpassed Alabama. Michigan State has surpassed Michigan on the field, but it's always just an overriding Michigan's Michigan, Michigan State's the little brother. Alabama's Alabama, Auburn's the little brother. Same thing in Texas with Texas A&M. But 10 years ago, close to it, Texas A&M was able to pull off a bit of a coup and by that move to the SEC, and it's been a tremendous benefit to both Texas A&M and the SEC. And now, if Texas can do the same thing, then that erases that advantage right there.
It does. It does.
Nick Battle does an amazing job. You got to join him on Nino's Corner. He was the first person I thought of that I got to get on here to get the Texas perspective on this. So, Nick, I thank you so much for that. And again, thanks for playing along, everyone. We've got like 80 people on the line that I did not intend to have on the line. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and leaving your comments. That's amazing. I just wanted to post this as a video. My mistake. I've been doing live streams all day on this, but I just wanted to record a segment with Nick. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate it. Head on over to Nino's Corner right here on YouTube and check out Nick's work on Texas. Nick, we appreciate you stopping by. This will be interesting to see how it unfolds, because there's no question that this is a real deal. Now, whether they get the 11 out of 14 votes, I've got a feeling that and maybe you can mention this and speak to this before you take off. There's thoughts that obviously Texas A&M votes no. Missouri has issues with it, possibly because of geography and old rivalries, that they might want to keep their territory in the Midwest. There are certain schools in the SEC that have a reason to vote no, but at the same time, when Greg Sankey and officials pull everyone together and twist some arms and say, hey, this is how the dollars lay out, that vote may swing and it may be a done deal. Oklahoma and Texas coming to the SEC.
Yeah, honestly, Mark, if Texas A&M doesn't vote yes to have Texas come, everything that Texas A&M has been saying over the past 10 years about Texas being scared to play Texas A&M and they don't want to play us, and it erases that whole narrative, because we all know Texas has been trying to get Texas A&M on the schedule for quite some time now, and for some reason Texas A&M, no, we're not going to play this year. We're playing this team. We're playing that team. We're playing that team. And it's been this narrative that Texas has been scared to play Texas A&M because Texas A&M is in the bigger conference, in the better conference. If Texas A&M votes no to this, if they vote no to not have Texas coming to the SEC, which team is scared to play who now?
There you have it. Our Texas football guy right there. Again, Nick Battle, Nino's Corner. Nick, appreciate you stopping by. It will be fascinating, again, to see how this unfolds, because a lot of lawyers need to get involved to tear up contracts and restructure contracts with TVs and all sorts of academic considerations and the like. Nick, you have a great night. We appreciate you stopping by, sir.
All right, Mark. Appreciate it, man.
Nick Battle, Nino's Corner. Again, I apologize, everyone. That was intended to be a recorded segment. I was out and about, came back, had a segment scheduled with Nick at 8:30 Eastern time, and I just kind of inadvertently invited all of you. So here we are for like a third or fourth time today here at the Voice of College Football. I'm going to get off here. I've got prediction videos to send your way. As you guys know, we got 65 to knock out. I've only completed about 6, so I got a lot of predicting to do. Also, in addition to that, I was in the midst of watching Jim Harbaugh's news conference. I'm sure many of you will be just fascinated to know what I have to say about Jim Harbaugh's news conference today at Big Ten Media Days. If you want to see our report on Nebraska's stay at Big Ten Media Days, that's over on the Nebraska channel. You can check that out. I want to check out Dabo Sweeney, Manny Diaz, Mike Norvell, and others at ACC Kickoff, Big Ten Media Days as well. I believe Ryan Day hits a podium on Friday. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Falconer X, thank you so much for the contribution tonight. Appreciate that so much. Everybody have a good night. We will see you back here on the Oklahoma channel, 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central on Friday. Oklahoma channel. We'll be back here to talk more of this crazy, crazy expansion world in college football.